Dramatic, suspenseful music begins and fades to the background. Have you ever trusted someone so completely, only to have them erase you from their life like you never existed? Imagine dedicating 5 years of your life, 3 as a business partner, 2 as a fiancé, to building a dream with someone, only to hear them deny ever knowing you. This isn't just a story. It was Clara's reality. Clara sat in stunned silence as she listened to her ex-fiancé Daniel Chen speak to her new associate, Marcus. Business school creates a lot of casual connections, Daniel said, his voice smooth and dismissive over the phone. Maybe we were in a study group. I honestly can't place her. A study group. Clara felt a bitter laugh escape her. 5 years of shared dreams, late nights building a financial empire from the ground up, a ring on her finger, all reduced to a forgotten study group. Daniel didn't just deny her, he painted her as a social climber. Be careful about people claiming to know me, he warned Marcus. You'd be surprised how many people use fake connections to get close to successful men. Fake connections. The words echoed in the silent room, a cruel joke at her expense. That's what our engagement was, apparently, Clara whispered, her voice hollow. A fake connection. Marcus, bless his heart, looked at his phone as if it had personally betrayed him. He turned to Clara, his expression a mixture of confusion and dawning horror. You were engaged to Daniel Chen for 2 years. Yes, Clara confirmed, the words feeling foreign, like she was recounting a movie plot. And we were business partners for 3 years before that. We built Pinnacle Financial together. Every algorithm, every client strategy. That was my work. My ideas. The story that unfolded next was a masterclass in deception. Daniel hadn't just stolen her work, he had methodically and ruthlessly stolen her identity. He didn't just walk away with the company they built. He orchestrated a smear campaign so devastating it left her with nothing. He made sure everyone believed I was the one stealing from him, Clara explained, the memory still raw. He falsified documents, manipulated financial records. He convinced our own clients that I was embezzling. By the time Clara understood the depth of his betrayal, it was too late. Daniel had filed charges against her, freezing all her assets and effectively cutting her off from her own life. She was trapped, branded a criminal by the very man who had once promised her forever. Marcus's jaw was clenched, a muscle twitching in his cheek. But the charges didn't stick, he stated, trying to find a silver lining. Or you'd be in prison. They didn't stick because he dropped them, Clara clarified, revealing the final, brilliant move in Daniel's twisted game. At the last minute, he dropped the charges, saying he didn't want to ruin my life over a misunderstanding. It was a stroke of genius. He painted himself as the merciful, forgiving victim, magnanimously letting her go. In the court of public opinion, his charity was the final nail in her coffin. Who drops theft charges unless they absolutely certain of guilt but are simply too kind to follow through? He didn't just ruin her reputation, he cemented it. He walked away with their company, their shared fortune, and the pristine image of a benevolent man wronged by a greedy woman. Clara was left with nothing but the shadow of his accusations and a name nobody in her industry would trust. But this is not where Clara's story ends. This is where it begins. Because when you've lost everything, you have nothing left to lose. Stripped of her name, her money, and her past, Clara was forced to rebuild from the ashes. She had to become someone new, someone stronger, someone who could fight back. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclamation. Reclaiming her name, her work, and her life. Daniel thought he had erased her, but he only ignited a fire. He underestimated the woman he created. He forgot that she was the architect of his success, the ghost in his machine. And now, that ghost was coming back to haunt him. The world of high finance is a battlefield of numbers and secrets. Clara, armed with her brilliant mind and the burning desire for justice, is about to re-enter that battlefield. Daniel may have the power and the reputation, but Clara has the truth. And more importantly, she now has Marcus, an ally who has just seen the real Daniel Chen for the first time. The game is changing. The players are being reset. Daniel built his empire on a foundation of lies, and Clara knows exactly where every crack is. She's not the naive woman he betrayed anymore. She's a strategist, ready to dismantle his world piece by piece, algorithm by algorithm. What happens when the mastermind behind the throne decides to take the kingdom back for herself? Daniel thinks he's safe at the top, but he's forgotten one crucial detail. He's living in a house of cards that Clara herself designed, and she knows exactly which card to pull to make it all come crashing down. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey. If you re as captivated by Clara's story as I am, and want to see how she exacts her brilliant revenge, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss a single moment of what comes next. Drop a comment below and let me know what you think Clara's first move should be. See you in the next video. Soft, pensive piano music begins and fades into the background. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we re-dive into a story that asks a powerful question. In a world driven by money and power, can simple human decency still win? Let's explore a moment where two worlds collide and a single act of kindness might just change everything. Imagine this. Marcus, a man whose life is a fortress built of success and careful calculation, runs a hand through his perfectly styled hair, his composure finally cracking. That's diabolical, he breathes, staring at Clara. Clara lets out a laugh, but it's a hollow, brittle sound, completely devoid of joy. That's Daniel, she replies, the name hanging in the air like a curse. And now he's your business partner. So I guess the real question is, what are you going to do about it? The challenge in her voice is undeniable. Marcus looks at her, his grey eyes a storm of unreadable thoughts. The silence stretches thick with tension. Then, in a single, decisive movement, he stands up and extends his hand to her. It's an offering, a promise. "I'm going to find out the truth," he says, his voice low but firm, cutting through the heavy air. "And then I am going to make sure Daniel Chen pays for what he did to you." Those words should have been a lifeline for Clara, a spark of hope in the darkness that had become her life. But she's been let down too many times. All she feels is a deep, weary resignation. She knows how this story usually ends. Men like Daniel, the charismatic villains, don't pay for their crimes. They profit from them. They build their empires on the ruins of other people's lives. And men like Marcus, well, in her experience, no matter how sincere they seem, they always choose the deal, the money, the path of least resistance. When the moment of truth arrives, justice becomes a luxury they can't afford. But as she looks from his determined face down to his outstretched hand, something shifts. It's a flicker of an emotion she thought Daniel had extinguished in her forever. It's a dangerous, fragile thing. Hope, against her better judgment, against every instinct screaming at her to protect herself, Clara takes his hand. The contact is electric. He pulls her gently to her feet, and she has to ask, her voice barely a whisper, "Why? Why would you risk a massive business deal to help someone you barely know?" Marcus doesn't answer right away. He just looks at her, his gaze so intense it feels like he's peeling back all the layers she's built around her heart. It's unnerving, this feeling of being truly seen because, he says finally, his voice softening, "I've spent my entire life surrounded by people who want something from me. My name, my money, my connections." He pauses, his thumb brushing lightly across her knuckles, sending a jolt of warmth straight up her arm. "And yesterday, for the first time in years, I met someone who just wanted to be kind to my mother. Someone who didn't even know who I was, who had no agenda except basic human decency." Clara feels the sting of tears at the corners of her eyes. When was the last time someone believed her so completely? Believed her without demanding proof, without paperwork, without forcing her to relive her trauma through endless, painful explanations. He continues, his voice hardening slightly. "And because Daniel Chen just lied to my face about knowing you, which means everything you've told me is probably true, and everything he's told me is probably a lie. The simple logic of it, the unwavering trust, is overwhelming. What if you're wrong?" she whispers, the fear still clinging to her. "What if I'm the liar?" A slow smile spreads across Marcus's face, and it completely transforms him. The guarded billionaire vanishes, replaced by someone warm and surprisingly gentle. "Then I guess I'm about to make a very expensive mistake," he says, his eyes twinkling. But something tells me that's not the case. Still holding her hand, he starts to walk, leading her forward. Caught in his momentum, Clara finds herself following, her heart racing. "Where are we going?" "To my office." "I want to show you something." Panic flares in her chest. "Marcus, I can't. People will see your reputation." He stops abruptly and turns to face her, his grip on her hand firm and reassuring. "Clara," he says, his gaze locking with hers, "I don't care about my reputation. I care about the truth. And I have a feeling that the truth about Daniel Chen is going to be very, very interesting." And so they walk across the sprawling campus, their reflections dance in the glass of the modern buildings, the billionaire and the waitress, an unlikely pair, their lives tangled together by fate and the actions of a manipulative man. It's a scene straight out of a movie, a modern-day fairy tale with a dark twist. But as they walk, hand in hand, Clara feels a profound change within herself, for the first time in 2 long, painful years. She feels like she might be more than just a victim of Daniel's ruthless ambition. Looking at this man who is willing to risk it all for her, she feels like she might finally be someone worth fighting for. This story is a beautiful reminder that our actions, no matter how small they seem, can have a ripple effect we never imagined. A moment of kindness to an elderly woman set in motion a chain of events that could bring down a corrupt man and heal a broken spirit. It shows us that true strength isn't just about wealth or power. It's about integrity, courage, and the willingness to stand up for what's right, even when it's hard. Thank you so much for joining me on this narrative journey today. If this story touched you, please hit that like button and consider subscribing for more content like this. ID. Love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Do you believe people like Marcus truly exist? Until next time, take care and keep an eye out for the kindness in the world. Welcome back to Storyweaver, where we bring captivating tales to life. Today, we continue the gripping story of Clara and her quest for justice. Let's dive right in. Marcus's office was a world unto itself. It occupied the entire top floor of a gleaming midtown tower, a glass-walled kingdom with a breathtaking view of Manhattan. Clara tried her best not to gawk as they strode through the reception area. Assistants in sharp designer suits moved with a quiet, practiced efficiency. Everything from the modern furniture to the abstract art on the walls whispered of old money and impeccable taste. Mr. Blackwood, his assistant, a poised woman named Jennifer, rose as they approached. Her professional smile wavered for just a second when her eyes landed on Clara. "You're not scheduled to be in today." "Change of plans, Jennifer," Marcus said smoothly. He gently guided Clara toward the massive double doors of his private office. "Hold my calls for the next hour." He paused. "And Jennifer, complete confidentiality on this meeting." "Of course, sir," she replied, but Clara could feel the weight of Jennifer's curious gaze following them. In her simple black dress, amidst all this corporate luxury, she felt acutely out of place. If the reception area was impressive, Marcus's office was on another level entirely. It was a masculine space, all dark wood and rich leather, yet it managed to feel warm and inviting rather than intimidating. "Drink," Marcus offered, moving toward a polished sidebar. The bottles arrayed there looked like they were worth more than Clara's annual salary. I'm fine, thank you. Clara remained standing near the door, a sudden wave of uncertainty washing over her. Why had she agreed to this? Marcus, what exactly are you hoping to accomplish with this? She asked, her voice tight. Even if everything I've told you is true, Daniel is still your business partner. You can't just ... Cart. What? Marcus interrupted, pouring himself 2 fingers of what looked like very expensive scotch. Hold him accountable for his actions. His voice was calm, but firm. Clara, if Daniel Chen destroyed your life for his own profit, then he's exactly the kind of person I don't want as a partner. But the money ... double quotes Clara began. There's always another deal. Marcus settled into one of the plush leather chairs facing his desk and gestured for Clara to join him. There's not always another chance to do the right thing. Hesitantly, Clara perched on the edge of the opposite chair, her entire body tense with nervous energy. You say that now, she challenged, but when you see the numbers involved, when your board starts asking questions ... My board works for me, not the other way round. Marcus's tone was mild, but there was an unmistakable steel beneath it. And the numbers don't matter if they're built on fraud. He leaned forward, his grey eyes locking onto hers with an unnerving intensity. Tell me about the patents. Clara. Daniel's company has registered 17 patents in the last 2 years, all related to algorithmic trading and risk assessment. How many of those did you develop? Clara's breath caught in her throat. How did you ... Because I've been reviewing Pinnacle's assets as part of our due diligence, he explained, pulling out a sleek tablet and scrolling through several documents. And something about the filing dates bothered me. 17 patents, all filed within 6 months of each other, all supposedly developed by Daniel's team. He looked up from the screen, but when I looked at Daniel's educational background, his previous work history, nothing suggested he had the technical expertise to develop this kind of sophisticated financial modeling. He continued scrolling, his expression growing more focused. The core algorithms, the foundational architecture. It's brilliant, truly groundbreaking, but it doesn't align with Daniel's known skills. It feels like ... someone else's work. Someone with a deep intuitive understanding of both complex mathematics and market dynamics. Someone like you, Clara. A knot of emotion tightened in Clara's chest. For years she had been a ghost, her contributions erased, her name forgotten. To hear her work described with such admiration, to be seen and understood by this powerful man, was both overwhelming and validating. All of them, she whispered, the words barely audible. I developed all 17. A heavy silence filled the room. Marcus didn't seem surprised. He simply nodded, a grim understanding settling on his face. He set the tablet down on the polished surface of his desk. I thought so, he said, his voice low. The due diligence team flagged it as a potential risk. Key person dependency. they called it, assuming there was an anonymous genius on Daniel's team. They had no idea the key person had been pushed out entirely. He met her gaze again, his own eyes reflecting a mixture of anger and resolve. This isn't just about a bad business deal anymore, Clara. This is theft. Intellectual property theft on a massive scale. Clara finally allowed herself to take a deep breath, the tension in her shoulders easing slightly. She had carried this burden alone for so long. Now, sitting in this office high above the city, she felt a flicker of hope. She wasn't just a victim anymore. She had an ally. "So, what happens now?" she asked, her voice stronger than before. Marcus leaned back in his chair, his fingers steepled in front of him. A slow, determined smile spread across his face. "Now," he said, the steel in his voice now unmistakable, "we give Daniel Chen just enough rope. We let him believe the deal is moving forward. And while he's distracted by the promise of billions, you and I, with the help of my legal team, are going to gather every piece of evidence we need to prove that he's a fraud. We're not just going to sink this deal, Clara. We're going to take back everything he stole from you." And with that promise hanging in the air, a new chapter began. The game had changed, and Clara was no longer just a pawn. She was ready to play. What will happen next? Will Clara and Marcus succeed in exposing Daniel's scheme? You'll have to tune in next time to find out. Thanks for listening to Story Weaver. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next part of the story. See you then. The room felt like it was spinning around me. You investigated him. My voice was barely a whisper, a stark contrast to the storm brewing inside me. Marcus didn't flinch. He just sat there, a picture of calm confidence. "I investigate all my potential business partners, Clara. The real question is, why didn't I find any mention of *U* in the company's history?" His voice was gentle, almost soothing, but his questions were like a surgeon's scalpel, cutting right to the heart of the matter. "If you were truly a partner for 3 years, if you really contributed to developing these technologies, there should be records, incorporation documents, partnership agreements, employee files, something. But there's nothing." Tears pricked my eyes. Because Daniel erased me. The words came out so quiet, I wasn't sure he heard them. After he filed the charges, after he convinced everyone I was a thief, he had my name removed from everything. He rewrote the partnership agreements to say I was just an employee. He amended the patent applications, taking my name off the inventor credit. He made it look like I never existed. The silence that followed was deafening. Marcus was completely still, his fingers steepled in front of his face, his eyes fixed on me. That level of systematic documentation fraud, ... he finally said, his voice low and serious. "Clara, that's not just unethical, it's criminal." I let out a bitter laugh. Good luck proving it. Daniel is very thorough, and he has very, very expensive lawyers. So do I. Marcus picked up his phone, his thumb already moving across the screen. Jennifer, get me Charles Morrison at Morrison Webb and Associates. He paused, listening. Yes, I know it's Saturday. Tell him it's urgent. Panic seized me. I shot to my feet. Marcus, no. You can't do this. This will destroy your deal. Good. His voice was flat. Final, if this deal is built on stolen intellectual property, then it needs to be destroyed. He set his phone aside and stood up, facing me, his towering presence filling the room. You don't understand what you're risking, I pleaded, my hands clenched into fists at my sides. And you, he countered, his gaze intense, don't understand what I'm worth. He took a step closer. Clara, I could lose this entire deal and 10 more just like it, and I'd still have more money than I could spend in 3 lifetimes. What I can't afford to lose is my integrity. That simple statement hit me like a physical blow. Integrity. When was the last time someone chose principles over profit? When was the last time someone risked anything at all, to defend me? My own defenses crumbled. Why? The word was a breath, a question I didn't even know I was asking. Why are you doing this? Marcus closed the distance between us. He was so close, now I could see the tiny flecks of silver in his grey eyes, could smell the subtle, expensive cologne that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Because yesterday, he began, his voice dropping to an almost intimate tone. You could have just taken my mother's compliments to the chef and walked away. But you didn't. You spent 10 minutes talking to her about her travels, asking about her experiences. You treated her like a person, not an inconvenience. He paused, his eyes searching mine. Because you speak 5 languages, but you're serving wine for tips. Because you have a Columbia MBA, but you're terrified your boss thinks you're more trouble than you're worth. Because everything about you screams that you re someone who's been systematically diminished by people who were threatened by your brilliance. And frankly, Clara, he finished, his voice firm with conviction, I'm tired of watching brilliant people get pushed into the shadows. For the first time in a very, very long time, I felt a flicker of something I thought I'd lost forever. Hope. Maybe, just maybe, this was the start of something new. Maybe this was where I started to fight back. Thank you so much for watching and being a part of this story. If you're as invested in Clara's journey as I am, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. Drop a comment below and let me know what you think Marcus should do. We'll see you in the next video. I should have valued you. Clara felt tears threatening again. You're going to regret this. You'll regret this when the lawyers start asking questions. When your board demands explanations. When Daniel starts fighting back. Let me worry about Daniel. Marcus reached out slowly, giving Clara time to pull away, and brushed a tear from her cheek with his thumb. The question is, are you ready to fight back? The touch was gentle, almost reverent. Clara found herself leaning into it, despite every rational thought screaming in her head. I don't know how anymore. He took everything. Marcus, my work, my reputation, my confidence. I don't even know who I am without all of that. I know who you are. Marcus's other hand came up to frame her face, his touch warm against her skin. You're someone who spent 3 years building a company from absolutely nothing. Someone who developed technology so advanced that Daniel Chen was willing to commit fraud just to steal it. You someone who lost everything and still found the grace to be kind to a lonely old woman in a restaurant. His thumbs traced gently across her cheekbones, and Clara felt something inside her chest crack open. Something that had been frozen solid for 2 long years. You're someone worth fighting for, Clara Martinez. The real question is, do you believe that? Clara stared up at him, at this impossible man who was willing to risk millions of dollars for someone he had known for only 2 days. Everything about the situation was insane. The timing, the circumstances, the way her heart was racing from his touch. But for the first time in 2 years, Clara felt like herself again. Not the diminished, frightened woman Daniel had created, but the person she had been before. Intelligent, capable, worth defending. I want to believe it, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Then let me prove it to you. Before Clara could even ask what he meant, Marcus's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, and his expression instantly hardened. What is it? Clara asked, a sense of dread creeping in. It's a text from Daniel. He wants to move up our meeting to Monday. Says he has some exciting new developments to discuss. Clara felt a shard of ice form in her stomach. Marcus, you have to be careful. If he even suspects that you know about me, he won't. Because as far as Daniel Chen knows, I'm just another greedy businessman interested in his profit margins. Marcus's smile was sharp, predatory. He has no idea what's coming for him. Clara wanted to warn him again, to explain just how dangerous, how ruthless Daniel could be when he felt cornered. But the sheer determination in Marcus's eyes reminded her of something she had almost forgotten. The feeling of having someone in her corner, someone willing to fight her battles right alongside her. What do you need me to do? She asked quietly, her voice steady now. Marcus's expression softened, the hard edges melting away as he looked at her. A genuine smile touched his lips, one that reached his eyes and made them crinkle at the corners. For the first time, Clara saw not just the powerful businessman, but the man beneath the one who had seen her at her lowest and decided she was worth saving. He held her gaze for a long moment, a silent promise passing between them. Then he finally spoke, his voice low and full of a newfound purpose. First, you're going to tell me everything, every detail about the technology Daniel stole, every weakness in his company's structure, every person he might have wronged along the way. We need ammunition, Clara, and you are the key to all of it. She nodded, a wave of clarity washing over her. The fear was still there, a low hum in the background, but it was being drowned out by a rising tide of resolve. This was it, her chance to reclaim what was hers. And second, he continued, his tone softening even more, "You're going to let me take care of you. You've been fighting alone for too long. It's my turn now." He gestured toward the kitchen. "I don't know about you, but planning corporate takedowns makes me hungry. How do you feel about some late-night pancakes?" Clara let out a small, surprised laugh. The sound was foreign to her own ears. A ghost of a past self, she thought, was gone forever. Pancakes. The suggestion was so normal, so mundane, it was absurd. And yet, it was exactly what she needed, a moment of normalcy before the storm, a quiet breath before the war. "I'd like that," she said, and for the first time in a very long time, she truly meant it. As Marcus turned to lead the way, Clara looked around the luxurious apartment, a place that had felt like a golden cage just moments before. Now, it felt different. It felt like a headquarters, a command center, the place where the comeback began. Daniel had no idea what was coming. He thought he had won, that he had erased her from her own story. But he was wrong. This wasn't the end of Clara Martinez. This was just the beginning of her next chapter. And this time, she wasn't writing it alone. The battle lines were drawn, the players were set, and the game was about to change. "I need you to trust me. Can you do that? Trust." The word felt like acid on her tongue. It was the same word Daniel had weaponized against her, the one she'd sworn never to give to anyone ever again. But as Clara looked into Marcus's intense grey eyes, she felt a flicker of something she hadn't experienced in 2 long years. It was the fragile, tentative beginning of faith. "Yes," she said, surprised to find she actually meant it. "I can do that." Marcus's smile was like the sunrise after the longest, darkest night. "Good," he said, his voice low and firm, "because on Monday morning, Daniel Chen is going to discover that his past has finally caught up with him." As Marcus pulled her into his arms, Clara allowed herself a sliver of hope. Maybe, just maybe, justice wasn't as dead as she'd believed. And even if it was, at least she wouldn't be facing Daniel's wrath alone this time. For the first time in 2 years, Clara Martinez was no longer running. She was ready to fight back. Monday morning arrived with a sky as grey and overcast as Clara's mood. She sat in a small coffee shop across from Marcus's towering office building, her eyes fixed on the entrance through the rain-streaked windows. He had insisted she stay away to keep her safe while he met with Daniel. But she could unjust go home and wait helplessly while her entire future was decided by 2 men in expensive suits. Her phone buzzed on the table, startling her. It was Marcus. "Meeting starts in 10 minutes. Remember, whatever happens, Daniel doesn't know you're involved. Stay safe." Her hands trembled as she typed back a reply, her heart pounding against her ribs. "Be careful. He's more dangerous than you think." The response came back almost immediately. "I know, but so am I." Clara stared at the message, trying to draw some comfort from Marcus's unshakable confidence. But she knew Daniel in a way Marcus couldn't possibly imagine. She knew how he could twist the truth until it was unrecognizable, how he could make victims look like villains and monsters look like heroes. She had watched him destroy other people's lives with the same cold, calculating precision he'd used on her. She took a nervous sip of her cooling coffee. She feared that 43 floors above her, Marcus Blackwood was about to discover just how thoroughly Daniel Chen had played them all. Up in the penthouse conference room, Marcus straightened his tie, checking his reflection in the floor-to ceiling windows that overlooked the rain-slicked city. Everything had to be perfect. His appearance, his demeanor, the carefully prepared questions. Daniel could never suspect that this was anything more than routine due diligence for their business deal. Mr. Blackwood, his assistant Jennifer's voice crackled through the intercom. "Mr. Chen has arrived." "Send him in," Marcus replied, his voice calm and steady, betraying none of the tension coiling in his stomach. The grand conference room doors swung open, and Daniel Chen walked in with the kind of confident, easy stride that belonged to a man who truly believed he owned the world. He was shorter than Marcus remembered, with perfectly styled black hair and a smile that seemed warm and genuine until you looked closer into his cold, empty eyes. "Marcus, good to see you," Daniel said, extending a hand. Marcus took it, his grip firm. The game had just begun. Daniel settled into the plush leather chair opposite Marcus, looking completely at ease. "So, let's get down to it," he said, his smile never wavering. "Finalizing the details of our merger. It's an exciting day for both our companies." Marcus nodded, leaning back in his own chair, adopting an air of casual professionalism. "Indeed, I just have a few last-minute items to go over. Standard procedure, you understand? My board insists on absolute thoroughness." Of course," Daniel waved a dismissive hand. "Ask away. My books are open." Marcus picked up a sleek tablet from the polished table. "Excellent. Let's start with the acquisition of a smaller tech firm a few years back, Serrano Systems. The records are a bit sparse on the details of the founder's departure, a Mr. Julian Serrano. For the briefest of moments, a flicker of something unreadable crossed Daniel's face before his pleasant mask was back in place. Ah, Julian. A talented but volatile individual. We had creative differences. He decided to move on. It was all quite amicable. "Amicable," Marcus repeated, keeping his tone neutral as he swiped through the documents on his screen. "That's interesting, because my sources suggest he left after a rather public breakdown, followed by a lawsuit that was quietly settled out of court. A lawsuit alleging intellectual property theft." Daniel's smile tightened at the edges. Corporate negotiations can get heated. Julian was emotional. He made accusations he couldn't prove. In the end, he saw reason and accepted a generous severance package, a package that came with a very strict non-disclosure agreement. "I see," Marcus pressed on, his gaze unwavering. "It seems to be a pattern. I found similar settlements with at least 3 other former employees, all of whom left suddenly after raising ethical concerns. The air in the room grew heavy. Daniel's charming facade was beginning to crack, revealing the cold steel beneath. "You've been busy, Marcus. This feels less like due diligence and more like an interrogation. I'm just a man who likes to know who he's getting into business with," Marcus replied smoothly. He leaned forward, his voice dropping slightly. "And what I am learning is that you have a history of silencing people who get in your way. People like Clara Martinez, for example." The moment he said her name, the temperature in the room plummeted. The friendly mask was gone completely. Daniel's eyes narrowed into dangerous slits, his posture becoming rigid. "Where did you hear that name?" he asked, his voice a low, threatening growl. Marcus stood up, walking over to the window and looking down at the city below. He could just make out the small coffee shop across the street. "Let's just say a ghost from your past decided it was time to talk." Daniel shot to his feet, his face contorted with fury. "She's lying. Whatever that little gold digger told you, it's a lie. She tried to ruin me, and I won't let her do it again. Is that what you call it?" Marcus turned back from the window, his own expression now hard as granite. "Destroying her reputation, her career, her life, all because she wouldn't play your sick games." "You have no idea what you're talking about," Daniel hissed, jabbing a finger in Marcus's direction. "You're a fool for believing her." "No," Marcus said, his voice ringing with conviction. "The fool is the man who thought his crimes would stay buried forever." He tapped a button on his tablet, and the large screen on the conference room wall flickered to life. It displayed bank statements, internal emails, and a signed affidavit from a former colleague of Daniel's. "Everything is here, Daniel. The embezzlement, the fraud, the intimidation. The real story of what you did to Clara and all the others." Daniel stared at the screen, his face draining of all color. He looked like a cornered animal, his confident arrogance replaced by pure, unadulterated panic. He had been so sure of his power, so certain that he was untouchable. "This merger is off," Marcus stated, his voice cold and final, "and this information, it's already on its way to the district attorney's office and to every major news outlet in the city." Daniel lunged for the tablet on the table, but Marcus was quicker, snatching it away. "It's over, Daniel. You built your empire on lies and suffering, and now you're going to watch it all come crashing down." Defeated Daniel Chen sank back into his chair, the image of the world-conquering CEO shattering into 1,000 pieces. He was just a small, frightened man whose luck had finally run out. Down below, in the coffee shop, Clara's phone buzzed one last time. "It's done," the message from Marcus read. "He knows. We won." Tears of relief streamed down Clara's face as she read the words. It wasn't just a victory for her, it was a victory for everyone Daniel had ever hurt. The long night was finally over and a new day was dawning. She stepped out of the coffee shop, and for the first time in years, the rain didn't feel cold. It felt like it was washing the past away. The fight was over, and she had won. The mahogany table gleamed under the soft, recessed lighting, a polished battlefield where empires were won and lost. On one side sat Daniel, a portrait of manufactured success. His suit was bespoke, his watch worth more than my car, and his smile, a weapon he wielded with practiced ease. On the other side, there was me, Marcus. I might have looked calm, but beneath the surface, every nerve was a tightly coiled spring. "Thanks for moving this up," Daniel began, his voice smooth as aged whiskey. "I know your schedule is insane." "Not a problem," I replied, shaking his offered hand. The grip was firm, a classic power move. Everything about him was a performance, a carefully constructed illusion of trustworthiness. "Coffee?" I asked, gesturing to the silver service my assistant had left. "Please," he said, already launching into his pitch. "So, I've been thinking about our timeline, and I believe we can accelerate the merger by at least 6 weeks." I poured my movements deliberately slow and casual. I needed time to think, to watch. "Oh, my team has identified some additional assets that weren't in the original proposal." He accepted the cup one offered. "Intellectual property, mainly some proprietary algorithms that we've been developing internally." I settled back into my chair, the warmth of the coffee cup, a small anchor in the storm brewing inside me. This was it. The moment of truth. Or, more accurately, the moment of lies. "I appreciate you running the numbers by me first," I said, my voice even. "Tell me about these algorithms. Are they related to the risk assessment protocols you mentioned last month?" Daniel's smile widened. It was a predator's smile, confident and hungry. "Exactly, revolutionary stuff, Marcus. We're talking predictive modeling that can identify market patterns up to 18 months in advance. It's going to change how we approach portfolio management entirely." "Impressive," I said, keeping my tone neutral. "And your team developed these in-house?" "Absolutely," he beamed. "My lead researcher is brilliant. A PhD from MIT, years of experience in quantitative analysis. We've been working on this technology for over 3 years." Every word was a twisting knife. He was talking about Clara, my Clara, but he was erasing her, writing her out of her own story. A cold, quiet rage began to build in my chest. I picked up my pen, the cheap plastic, a stark contrast to his luxury, and started making notes on a legal pad. "And this researcher?" I asked, my eyes on the paper. "They're comfortable with the merger. No concerns about intellectual property rights, patent disputes, that sort of thing." "None at all," Daniel said, the lie slipping out as smoothly as a silk scarf. "Clean development chain, all work done under company contract." My legal team has been incredibly thorough. He was a master. He could rewrite history without even flinching. Clara had warned me, but seeing it in person was something else entirely. It was chilling. I put down my pen and leaned back, forcing a casual air I didn't feel. That's excellent. You know how important clean IP chains are in deals of this size. I let a beat of silence hang in the air before continuing. I have to ask though, 3 years of development seems like a significant investment for a company your size. How did you manage to fund the R&D? For the briefest of moments, a flicker of something, was it panic, crossed Daniel's face. It was there and gone in a heartbeat. Initial funding came from private investors, he recovered quickly. Then we reinvested profits as the technology proved viable. Just smart money management. Smart, I echoed, the word tasting like ash in my mouth. And your lead researcher, the MIT PhD, they've been with you for the entire 3 years. Oh, longer than that, Daniel said with a dismissive wave of his hand. The academic background is impressive, but real-world application is what truly matters. We've built something special together. The word hit me like a physical blow. He was taking credit for Clara's genius, her late nights, her sacrifice. He was stealing her life's work right in front of my eyes. The coffee in my stomach churned. Every word out of his mouth was a carefully constructed distortion, a thread in a web of deceit he had been weaving for years. He thought he was in control. He thought he was reeling me in. He had no idea he was the one walking into the trap. I took a slow sip of my coffee, my mind racing. I thought about Clara, about the long nights she'd spent hunched over her computer, fueled by passion and cheap takeout. I remembered her excitement when she finally had her breakthrough, the light in her eyes as she explained the complex beauty of her creation. Her creation, not his. Tell me more about this I said, my voice dangerously soft. Because from where I'm sitting, Daniel, the story sounds a little different. See, I happen to know the brilliant researcher you're talking about. I know she wasn't some hired gun with a fancy degree you picked up at. I know she started this project in her own garage with her own money. Daniel's smile finally vanished. The mask was gone, and for the first time, I saw the real man underneath, cornered and desperate. His eyes narrowed. I don't know what you're talking about, don't you? I leaned forward, placing my hands flat on the table. The pretense was over. Let's talk about the initial private investors. Was that before or after you convinced Clara that her work would never get funded without a seasoned businessman like you attached to it? Before or after you promised her a partnership, a promise that somehow never made it into writing? A muscle twitched in his jaw. The silence in the room was deafening. The ticking of his expensive watch seemed to grow louder, counting down the seconds of his collapsing empire. You see, Daniel, I continued, these algorithms aren't just additional assets. They're the entire reason I'm at this table. But I'm not here to merge with your company. I'm here to acquire the technology that you stole. He stared at me, his face pale. The confidence had evaporated, replaced by a raw, ugly fear. You can't prove any of that. I allowed myself a small, cold smile, can't I? You said your legal team was thorough. Well, so is mine. We've been looking into your clean development chain for months. We have emails. We have server logs. We have early drafts of the code timestamped long before you were ever in the picture. And most importantly, we have Clara. Your lead researcher is sitting with my legal team right now, walking them through every single line of code she wrote. Every single lie you told. I stood up, the chair scraping against the polished floor. The sound was final. This meeting is over. You'll be hearing from our lawyers. They'll be in touch to discuss the terms of your departure. And as for the merger, consider it dead. We're buying the technology directly from its rightful owner. I walked towards the door, not looking back. I didn't need to. I could feel his world crumbling behind me. The mahogany table, the silver coffee service, the bespoke suit, it was all just a stage for his performance, and the final curtain had just fallen. Just as like the best coffee is sometimes best served cold. Thanks for watching, everyone. It's a reminder that integrity and truth always matter, especially when the stakes are high. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button. Subscribe for more content, and let me know your thoughts in the comments below. We'll see you in the next one. The theft wasn't just of Clara's work, but of her very existence. The casual way he referred to their partnership while erasing her completely was breathtaking in its cruelty. I'd love to meet this researcher, Marcus said, his voice smooth as silk. I'm always interested in the minds behind the innovation. Daniel's pause was barely perceptible, a flicker, a brief hesitation before the mask snapped back into place. Unfortunately, he's in Singapore right now, working on implementation with our Asian partners. Very hands-on approach, you understand? Brilliant, but not much for corporate meetings. Of course, Marcus replied, feigning understanding. Well, when he returns, I'd appreciate an introduction. He reached for his coffee, using the deliberate movement to study Daniel's expression, searching for any cracks in the facade. In the meantime, I'd love to review the development documentation. The timeline, methodology, testing protocols. My technical team will want to understand the architecture before we finalize terms. Naturally, Daniel beamed, already pulling out his phone, his fingers flying across the screen. I'll have my assistant prepare a comprehensive package. You should have everything by the end of the week. Marcus nodded, making another note on his tablet. Perfect. And Daniel, he added, looking up to meet the other man's gaze, I appreciate your transparency about the additional assets. Trust is the foundation of any successful partnership. Absolutely. Daniel's smile was radiant, a picture of genuine warmth. Honesty in business isn't just ethical, it's profitable. Lies have a way of catching up with you eventually. The irony was so thick, Marcus could almost taste it, a bitter flavor on his tongue. He fought to keep his expression neutral. Couldn't agree more. They spent another 30 minutes wading through a swamp of fabricated financial projections and merger timelines. Daniel painted a picture of exponential growth and market dominance, a masterpiece of fiction that would have been compelling if Marcus had unknown it was built on a foundation of theft and fraud. Every word out of his mouth was a calculated lie, another brick in the wall he was building around Clara's stolen work. Marcus played his part, nodding along, asking the right questions, giving Daniel enough rope to hang himself. When Daniel finally stood to leave, his handshake was firm, his demeanor exuded confidence. And his promises were as elaborate as they were empty. Marcus watched him go, listening for the soft chime of the elevator doors closing down the hall. The moment he heard it, he pulled out his phone, his thumb already hovering over a contact. "Call Charles Morrison now," he commanded, his voice cold and hard. Meanwhile, miles away, Clara was on her third cup of coffee, the dark liquid doing little to calm the frantic beating of her heart. When her phone rang, Marcus's name flashing on the screen sent a jolt through her. She answered without preamble. "How did it go?" "Exactly as you predicted." Marcus's voice came through, laced with a mix of satisfaction and disgust. He lied about everything: the development timeline, the research team, the funding sources. "And you, Clara?" He's claiming his lead researcher is a man with a PhD from MIT, no less. Clara's laugh was a bitter, broken sound. "Let me guess," she said, the words dripping with sarcasm. "This mysterious genius is conveniently unavailable for meetings. In Singapore, perhaps. Apparently, very hands-on, but not a fan of corporate environments. How convenient." Clara closed her eyes, the familiar weight of Daniel's manipulation settling over her like a heavy shroud. It was a pattern she knew all too well. "Did he seem suspicious?" "About your questions?" "Not at all," Marcus replied, his tone hardening. He was practically glowing with what he clearly thought was his own cleverness. "It's Clara. I've met some truly unscrupulous people in my career, but the casual, almost bored way he erased your existence, it's sociopathic. I tried to warn you," she whispered, the words a faint echo of past conversations. "You did," he admitted, his voice softening. "And you were right about everything." There was a pause on the line, a moment of shared understanding that transcended the distance between them. Then Marcus's voice became gentler, laced with genuine concern. "How are you holding up?" "I'm functional," she replied, the word feeling hollow and inadequate. She took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. It's one thing to know he's a liar. It's another to hear him rewrite history with you as his audience. To hear him erase me so completely. "I know," Marcus said. "But he didn't just lie, Clara. He overplayed his hand. He gave us exactly what we need. The documentation he's sending over, that's his confession." A small spark of hope ignited in Clara's chest. "You think it will be enough?" "I know it will be. Charles Morrison is already on it. He's the best forensic accountant in the business." By the time Daniel's comprehensive package arrives, we'll already have the truth laid bare. Every fabricated data point, every stolen line of code. Clara could almost picture it. Daniel, so smug and self-assured, unknowingly sending them the very evidence that would bring his empire of lies crashing down. What's the next step? The next step, Marcus said, his voice now firm with resolve, is that we let him think he's won. We let him get comfortable in his delusion. And then, when he least expects it, we expose everything. Not just to the board, but to the world. We're not just getting your work back, Clara, we're getting your name back. For the first time in months, Clara felt a genuine smile touch her lips. It wasn't over. It was just beginning. The curtain was about to fall on Daniel's performance, and she and Marcus would be the ones in the director's chairs, ready for the final act. Thanks so much for watching this story unfold. If you're as invested as we are in seeing Clara get the justice she deserves, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next chapter. We've got a lot more coming, and you won't want to miss a second of it. See you in the next video. Clara looked around the coffee shop, a little bubble of normalcy in the chaos her life had become. She watched people chatting, tapping on laptops, sipping their lattes, all living perfectly ordinary lives. They had no idea that their simple Monday morning was the most surreal, most peaceful experience she'd had in recent memory. It was a calm she couldn't trust. A knot of anxiety tightened in her stomach. I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop, she murmured into her phone. Daniel doesn't make mistakes. Marcus, if he's being this cavalier about the lies, it's because he thinks he's already won. Marcus's voice came through the line, a comforting anchor. What do you mean? I mean, he's planning something, Clara insisted, her voice dropping to a whisper. Daniel doesn't just react to threats. He anticipates them. He neutralizes them before they even become problems. This is too easy. A chill crept up her spine, a cold that had nothing to do with the rain streaking down the coffee shop window. A dreadful thought began to form. Marcus, what if he knows? What if this whole thing, us talking, you asking questions, what if it's all some elaborate trap he's laid for us? That's impossible, Marcus said, though his confidence didn't quite reach his tone. There's no way he could know we've been in contact. We've been so careful. Are you sure? Clara pressed, the pieces clicking into a terrifying picture in her mind. Think about it. First, you ask him about a mysterious person from Colombia, someone with a linguistics background who claims to know him. Then, just 3 days later, you suddenly start grilling him with detailed questions about his development team and his intellectual property chains. Don't you see? From his perspective, that's a hell of a coincidence. The line went quiet. Clara could practically hear the gears turning in Marcus's head as he connected the dots. The silence stretched, heavy and unnerving. Finally, he spoke. You think he's figured out that you're the Columbia connection? I think Daniel Chen doesn't believe in coincidences any more than you do, Marcus, she replied, her voice grim. The casual atmosphere of the coffee shop suddenly felt suffocating, like the walls were closing in. A new urgency laced Marcus's voice, sharp with worry. Clara, where are you right now? Tell me exactly. I'm in the coffee shop directly across the street from your building. Why? What's wrong? Because if you're right, he said, his words clipped and fast, if Daniel has figured out our connection, then you are not safe. He destroyed your life once before, just because you were an inconvenience. What do you think he'll do now that he sees you as a direct threat? Ice formed in her stomach, cold and sharp. She had been so focused on the possibility of justice, on the hope of vindication, that she hadn't fully considered the lengths Daniel would go to protect himself. And Daniel Chen had never been one to leave loose ends. The memory of what he'd done to her before, the life he'd stolen, came rushing back. Marcus, she breathed, her voice trembling slightly. I should disappear. Tonight. Leave the city. Change my name again. Just vanish. No. Marcus's voice was firm, absolute. It cut through her panic. Running didn't work the first time, Clara, and it won't work now. Daniel will just follow you. He'll hunt you down. And next time, you won't have anyone watching your back. Clara felt a wave of despair. Then what do you suggest? What are we supposed to do? I suggest we force his hand, Marcus declared. We make him come to us on our terms, instead of letting him hunt you down on his timeline. Her grip tightened on her phone until her knuckles were white. The idea was insane. That's suicide, Marcus. You don't understand what he's capable of. The resources he has, the people he controls. And you don't understand what I'm capable of, Marcus countered. His tone held a raw confidence that was both incredibly reassuring and utterly terrifying. Clara, I didn't build a billion-dollar company by backing down from fights. I've faced sharks you can't even imagine. And I sure as hell am not going to let Daniel Chen intimidate the woman I. He stopped abruptly. The sentence hung in the air, unfinished but echoing with unspoken meaning. Clara's heart stuttered, a wild, hopeful beat against her ribs. The fear, the danger, Daniel Chenette, all faded into the background for one breathless moment. She held the phone closer, her voice barely a whisper. The woman you what?